Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, rescuers racing to try to find survivors. The search is on after the massive earthquake in Turkey and Syria. The death toll continues to climb, now more than 5,000, as dozens of nations send rescue workers and relief supplies to the devastated area. President Biden still low in the polls, set to give his State of the Union address to a divided Congress as he deals with his document scandal. And Republicans want spending cuts before raising the debt ceiling. Tensions between the United States and China rising over the Chinese balloon that crossed America, with China insisting it was an accident involving a civilian unmanned airship that they lost control of.
They are liars. They are lying about this. This was certainly an effort to collect against important information that America doesn't want in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
But the U.S. is hoping to gain intelligence information from the downed balloon. The balloon controversy coming amid warnings China is building up its military so it can become more powerful than the U.S.
If we don't realize that we're in a competition, we're going to lose that competition, and our core national security, economic interests will be at stake.
A Christian ministry working to minister to the poorest of the poor around the world.
We need to weep with people who weep. At the same time, you see this, the beauty of Jesus in his believers who are just reaching out and making room in their homes. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Plus, we'll hear what Heidi Baker has to say about her hope for revival in America and a strong showing at the box office for the final episodes of the third season of The Chosen. Those stories and more for you today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We want to begin this half hour with the massive international rescue and aid effort underway even as we speak to help millions of people in Turkey and Syria. It comes just one day after the catastrophic 7.8 magnitude earthquake that devastated the region. Today, the death toll was more than 5,000 and it's still climbing. CBN's Chris Mitchell reports it is the worst natural disaster in nearly a century to hit the area.
The scenes are apocalyptic. The earthquake toppled thousands of buildings in the area, leaving millions without shelter. The death toll is now in the thousands, but could soar into the tens of thousands. Millions agonizing over lost or missing loved ones.
A whole family of my cousin, his wife, his daughter, and his son, all of them died. They were taken out from under the rubble after 8 hours.
Many are now living in tents.
My wife was terrified after the earthquakes, so we didn't want to go back home. Neither did my kids. Our family came here to stay in the shelter.
The pictures and videos on social media are heart-wrenching. These two sisters are trapped together under the rubble. This father and son died together, with the father protecting his son. This baby was born and then reportedly its mother died. The anguish of the people devastated has touched a global chord.
I think all of the world's thoughts and condolences are with the people in this region who are suffering at this time.
Dozens of nations, including Mexico, Holland, and Spain, have begun a massive aid effort to bring needed food, shelter, and medical supplies, as well as search and rescue teams to help people dig out of the rubble. USA Team 2 from Los Angeles is one of them.
So these men and women and these dogs of the LA County Fire Department are really going to go place themselves in harm's way to save lives, to dig people out, and to help with the recovery. So it's going to be a very dangerous mission. They're prepared, they're trained.
Israel is sending aid and an IDF team called Olive Branches. They flew out Monday night. And hundreds of volunteers, rescue workers, and NGO members rushed to Istanbul airport to join the effort. The good news is that so far, nearly 8,000 people have been rescued out of the rubble like this little girl. It will now be a race against time to save many more. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, President Joe Biden will deliver his first State of the Union address tonight, since Republicans took control of the House. Although his approval ratings are still low, he is expected to make the case for a second term in office. And the president's speech comes as he faces a standoff with Republicans over raising the nation's debt ceiling. Mark Martin is on the story.
When President Biden gives his State of the Union address, he faces a divided Congress and a large chunk of voters who are not pleased with his job performance. 4 in 10 Americans say they're worse off financially under Biden. That's the most ever recorded in an ABC News Washington Post poll that dates back 37 years. Can the president's speech change that? Nathan Gonzalez, the editor and publisher of Inside Elections, weighed in on CBN's Faith Nation.
I don't know if the speech itself will do that, but if the underlying numbers of the economy continue, I think voters will start to feel the economy getting better, and that will change the perception, but not the speech itself.
The president is said to be very positive ahead of tonight's address.
I talk to the American people and let them know the state of affairs, what's going on.
He's expected to tout a strong economy and claim credit for a better-than-expected jobs report. But Republicans say the American people don't feel any difference.
While the president thinks he has numbers to tout, the average American family knows better, which is why they voted for House Republicans to have a change in leadership in Congress. And we're going to hold this president accountable.
The president will deliver his speech amid a special counsel investigation into his potential mishandling of classified documents. On top of that, you have the threat of recession, Russia's war in Ukraine, and growing tensions with China. And then there's the battle over raising the country's debt ceiling, which Republicans are using to try and rein in more big spending bills.
The runaway spending of the last few years, it's over. No blank checks.
Even the president's own party is apprehensive about Biden seeking re-election. An Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs research poll shows only 37% of Democrats want Biden to run again. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Another major issue confronting the Biden administration is that Chinese balloon that floated clear across the country before a fighter jet shot it down off the coast of South Carolina this weekend. The United States is hoping to learn more about what was in that spy balloon. Meanwhile, some Trump administration officials are firing back at claims that other Chinese balloons entered American airspace on their watch. CBN White House correspondent Abigail Robertson brings us that story.
The Pentagon says Chinese spy balloons have flown over U.S. territory at least 3 other times, including during the Trump administration, a claim senior Trump officials tell CBN News they were not aware of.
I never knew about it.
Mike Pompeo, who served as both CIA director and Secretary of State during the Trump administration, believes if this happened, he would have been told.
I hope it's not the case that the military knew and didn't tell its political leadership. But I can certainly say that I know of no one in the administration at the political senior level that was aware of such an action taking place on our watch. We wouldn't have allowed it to happen for 5 days.
China insists the flyover was an accident involving what it called a civilian unmanned airship.
They are liars. They are lying about this. This was certainly an effort to collect against important information that America doesn't want in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. I cannot figure out for the life of me why the Biden administration chose to allow this to traverse Alaska down through the United States across significant military installations here in the homeland. They'll have to explain that to the American people.
President Joe Biden ordered U.S. officials to take action before it passed through Wyoming, Kansas, Missouri, and the Carolinas. National security leaders, however, decided to wait until it was over water.
I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was as it got over water.
After an F-22 fighter shot down the balloon, Navy divers, the Coast Guard, and U.S. ships spread out to search a 7-mile area off South Carolina's coast for remnants of the suspected intelligence payload that officials believe may have collected data.
The fact that he did not shoot it down and deal with it immediately upon entry into the United States tells every other adversary, every other country around the world that President Joe Biden will not protect the borders of our country, will not protect the airspace of our country, and that you can do whatever you like. And that's the worst message we can be sending right now.
The Pentagon claims that waiting to shoot the balloon down allowed them to collect intel on what it was actually doing and what capabilities it has. and they believe the future will prove the wait was worth it. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Coming up, while the Chinese balloon captured public attention, the Pentagon has been paying attention to China's military buildup and what it means for the United States. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. A Pentagon report is shedding light on a military buildup in the country considered to be the greatest national security threat to the United States. China has long worked to outpace the U.S. economically, and now its sights are set on the military front. Experts warn if America doesn't act now and the communist regime becomes the leading world power, it could result in an end of security, freedom, and global prosperity. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke brings us this story.
The Chinese Communist Party is conducting the largest military modernization effort in the country's history, a move the Pentagon believes is not only in preparation for taking Taiwan, but also for overtaking the United States as the world's leading superpower.
I see the United States as the world's leading democratic power, and China is the world's leading authoritarian power. So if we don't realize that we're in a competition, we're going to lose that competition, and our core national security, economic interests will be at stake.
The DoD report on China's military strength includes some significant findings. In 2021, Beijing tested 135 ballistic missiles, more than the rest of the world combined. Their nuclear stockpile sits at around 400 warheads, but is expected to grow to about 1,500 by 2035. The PRC is stealing technology from the United States and sending it directly to its military. They have strategic partnerships with Iran and Russia, and they're looking to build new military bases around the world.
Beijing is sprinting to build the capability to carry out their words. They're matching actions with words. That's, to me, the bottom line.
Bradley Bowman, the senior director of the Center on Military and Political Power at Freedom for Defense of Democracies, says China is clearly preparing to take Taiwan, even if it means a direct military conflict with the U.S. He believes how we respond could determine whether or not China displaces America in the power competition.
If you don't like what you're seeing in Xinjiang with what I would call crimes against humanity and some have called genocide, if you don't like what you've seen in Hong Kong with the extinguishment of freedom there, if you don't like what you see with the bullying in the South China Sea, and if you don't like the saber rattling in the Taiwan Strait, if America stands down and becomes insular and stares at our belly button and thinks we can get away with ignoring the world, we're going to see a heck of a lot more of that globally.
Some believe Beijing's military buildup is simply to match the economic power they've become. But Bowman argues without transparent strategic dialogue with the U.S., the Pentagon is right to sound the alarm.
And when we don't have that transparency and we don't know exactly what's going on, it forces the Pentagon to assume the worst. And when both sides are assuming the worst about the other, it leads to dangerous miscalculation.
Bowman says the U.S. has what it takes to deter Chinese aggression, but there needs to be more of a sense of urgency coming from Washington. He says that would involve immediate funding to ramp up our own military modernization efforts and to start acquiring the weapons needed to defend democracy worldwide. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, a Christian organization bringing help and hope to the poorest of the poor in 37 countries. We're going to hear from Heidi Baker of Iris Global Ministries about that ministry and the hope for revival in America. The story's coming up for you. It's coming up right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. In 1980, Iris Global Ministries started with just two people, Heidi and Roland Baker. Today, it encompasses more than 2,000 missionaries, staff, and volunteers. They work in 73 ministry centers in 37 nations, bringing help and hope to the poorest of the poor. Charlene Aaron recently sat down with Heidi to talk about her work and the hope for revival in America.
We're so honored to have you with us for the Prayer Link. Prayer Link is a show that we talk about the news, but we don't just talk about it, we pray about what is happening in the headlines. My first question for you is about your wonderful book, God's Got This, 40 Devotions of Courageous Faith, highlighting amazing stories from people around the world. What was the motivation and why did you feel it was important to compile such an amazing list of stories?
Well, just as we all know, the world's shaking and people have all gone through, every single person on the planet has gone through something hard, something challenging, something painful. But how do we see it through the lens of the power of God, the love of God, and how do we as believers comfort one another and use our challenging situations to help other people as well? And so it's really stories of people who have inspired me, courageous faith, and they teach me every day.
Powerful, powerful. What God is doing in your life, Heidi, in Mozambique. You've been there for many years, since 1995. And you say right now with the persecution and everything that's going on there, that it's the hardest time you've ever been through, but yet the most glorious.
It is.
Talk about that.
Yes, I mean, when you see people that you care about losing their homes, with this as a radical insurgent group in my province where we've lived for many years. And when you see them losing everything, it's painful, and you see so much hunger and people hurting and people who have lost their lives. And so that's painful, and we need to weep with people who weep. At the same time, you see the beauty of Jesus in his believers who are just reaching out and making room in their homes. Like, I've never seen anything like it around the world, where people who have so little are just saying, hey y'all, come live with me. And they share absolutely everything. We have over 1 million internally displaced people now in Cabo Delgado. 1 million. And there are more coming all the time because of the insurgent attacks. And yet the believers are just opening up their arms and sharing what they have. God is blessing crops. Obviously, we do a lot of food aid as well and bring in the audio solar Bibles. But it's really the beauty of the Mozambican bride of Christ who teaches us what true love and generosity looks like.
Praise God. I love that. With regard to persecution, you've talked about a shaking that's coming. What's the message for the global church with regards to that right now?
Fix your eyes on Jesus. He's the author and the finisher. We've lost people we love. They're in heaven. It's like a blink of an eye. And sometimes we just lose sight of that. We forget the beauty of eternity. Eternity's real. It's not just a fairy tale. We're not just saying kumbaya, it's a fairy tale land. No, eternity's real. And if we fix our eyes on Jesus and we understand the veil is thin, then we're going to spend whatever amount of time we have on this planet shining for him. Hallelujah. And ask him to just rip fear out of us so that we can love well.
Hallelujah. Amen. What do you think American Christians can learn from Christians in other countries like Mozambique who are being persecuted right now? What do you think we in America can learn from that? Should we learn?
I think fix your eyes on Jesus. Again, telling stories. People that are very, very close to me that work on our team, Shamoku, Shulumbu, Jose, they lost their homes, their families lost their homes, their farms, their churches were burned to the ground. But they, instead of just feeling sorry for themselves, which is a natural thing, and there was a lot of weeping, they allowed their eyes to get off of their own pain and onto Jesus. And instead of them being victims, they said, we're going to go out there and share. Yes. And they lead the teams, the distribution outreach teams. They share this glorious gospel. They go out day and night. These guys have lost family members in this conflict, and they share the gospel with people who love them and people who don't yet know what love looks like. And they're just fearless in their love. And they say, you just never burn Jesus out of our hearts.
Now you can watch Heidi's entire interview on this week's episode of The Prayer Link. It airs at 6:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. You can also see it on the CBN News app or simply watch it on YouTube. Coming up, a strong showing at the box office for the final episodes of the 3rd season of The Chosen. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. Thank you for watching. Stay with us. The Chosen's final episodes of the 3rd season had a strong showing at the box office, easily topping numbers on its first Thursday with $1.67 million. For the weekend, it brought in $3.6 million to make it into the top 10 with a 9th place finish. When the show's creators announced that they were going to be premiering the last 2 episodes of Season 3 in theaters, fans grabbed tickets so quickly it crashed the ticketing website. Well, now is the time for your Tuesday Tweetable. Here's the message I pray will bless you and then move you to post tag tweet and share it with those in your circles of influence. Fix your focus. Spend less time thinking about your trouble and more time thinking about the answer to that trouble. His name is Jesus, and he is the Word, the I Am. All that you need can be found in him. With that word, I encourage you to make today a terrific Tuesday. Well, that is a wrap for this edition of CBN News Watch. To remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And, of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.